Greetings, members, one and all of the Salivation Nation. Silver bars worth over $1 million have been stolen in a quite bizarre incident. Let's explore! As shared with me by several members of the community, this story is quite intriguing and raises quite a number of questions. I'm going to talk a little bit about this because it seems like whenever I cover precious metal crimes, of which there will be a link either at the end screen of this video or in the description or pinned comment below, there's always something more to it, or at least more questions that can be raised. One of them key being, well, is this an inside job? And this certainly seems like it could be the case here, especially when we look at the time frame involved here in this story. Police investigate $1 million of silver bullion theft from the truck. This is from an Australian news station here, 9news.com.au. Thieves have stolen $1 million worth of silver bullion from a truck on the way from Sydney to Melbourne, Australia. Detectives from the NSW Robbery and Serious Crime Squad believe the heist took place across the weekend from 4:30 p.m. on the 26th of November to 8 a.m. on the 29th of November as a truck made its way from Malden near Picton in New South Wales to the Victorian capital. In an appeal for information released today, police said the theft wasn't discovered until the Kenworth truck and silver Kruger trailer arrived in Melbourne. Now that is an interesting, already where some red flags have come up. You know, if they can't pinpoint the theft from at least the same day, that just goes to show you something is off here. I guess the truck was sitting for that long of a time. I don't know, but anyways, it wasn't discovered until it had arrived in Melbourne. It makes you wonder why it wasn't discovered until it had arrived there, because certainly on the trip there, the bars were missing. And here we can see a view of the monster boxes here that show what the bars would have been housed in here. 5-kilo bars, you can see there. Fascinating. Police said about $1,015,000 worth of silver from a consignment of 192 individual 5-kilogram bars were stolen. Now think about that. That's the equivalent of 960 kilos there, which measures out to over 2,100 pounds of silver. That's a lot of silver to not recognize in your vehicle traveling. I would think that a truck of any magnitude would know if literally would amount to the weight of another vehicle inside of your load there. Wouldn't that have been noticed? If you drive, boy, this seems like an awful light load. All that silver being missed, it seems very, very strange here. It makes you wonder. Detective Acting Superintendent Paul Smith said, insider knowledge could have led to the heist, and I agree. I think that's probably what has occurred, an inside job, which seems to be kind of a theme of suspicion in many of these stories. A line of inquiry we're looking at is people having inside knowledge as to the consignment of silver, and it is being transported between Sydney and Melbourne, he said. Acting Superintendent Smith said this is an unusual type of robbery. You think? I think that is very unusual indeed. Fascinating how some of these precious metal crimes take place, and given that the silver, which is a lot heavier to transport around, and with the unique bars that they are, 5-kilo bars, you don't see those every day. Kilo bars maybe, but not these. And here we can, here's an image of what the bar looks like. And interesting indeed. Let's see, it says Acting Superintendent Smith added the bars are very identifiable. Certainly very unique, these types of bars, quite large and quite heavy. They're stamped with an identifier on them to make them certainly recognizable and identifiable. Police have released an image of one of the missing bars and packaging to help with inquiries. And so anyone who has been approached by individuals trying to sell the bars is urged to contact the police. Well, if they are going to go about the business of such a grand silver heist, well, and shout out to Silver Heist, the channel, by the way. There's a channel called Silver Heist. If you haven't seen him, check him out. He's got a great channel. But this type of activity, more than likely, they would have thought through the process of liquidating these bars. And I'm not talking about just selling them. I'm talking about literally melting them down into a different form, perhaps. It'll be very interesting to see how this plays out. And how they are going to make this or get away with this situation. That's a lot of silver. 960 kilos is quite a bit, and to be able to get to liquidate it, to get the cash from it, because if they're just holding on to the bars for what they are, they're going to have to do a lot to try to cover themselves. And I believe even just having one of these bars unmelted and sold is going to be very risky for them. So they would have to melt them down and reconstitute them in a different way. How would they would do that? Perhaps maybe they would sell it on the black market to jewelry makers or what have you, or I don't know how they would even make that happen, because I'm sure most jewelry makers, or other industries that would utilize silver, they would have to source it. They'd have to be legitimate there. So they must either have connections or have thought this through if they're going to be smart about it, or they decided, well, we'll figure it out once we get the bars. Storing them is going to be quite something else. Over 2,100 pounds of these bars, where are they going to put them? How are they going to melt them down? That's very difficult unless you have the tools and machinery to be able to melt down a 5-kilo bar. It would be difficult to do it with a 1-kilo bar. So I don't know how they're going to make this happen. Given it's an inside job. And more than likely, if it's an inside job, the people that perpetrated this or that were responsible for these bars are going to be heavily questioned. And more likely, somebody is going to talk, which is kind of much like we've seen in the past. It'll be very interesting to see the follow-up to this story here and see what happens. But this is quite a bold and brazen heist that has taken place here. $1 million worth of silver. And that's just it. If you're going to steal something this large and this big, my guess is probably it would be much easier to do with gold. But maybe that's just it. They realize that probably the agencies involved here, their security was somewhat lax. They thought, well, silver is a big and bulky metal, and the spot price of silver is down right now. So more than likely, they figured it would be such a bold and brazen move that maybe their security was a bit lax in this regard, because what is somebody going to do with 2,100 pounds of silver? How are they going to process it to avoid detection? That is one of the big questions here. But it just goes to show you, folks, one reason or another, silver does have value, and I believe that it is incumbent upon us as individuals to not be complacent in our own security. And because no matter what, you have to be ultra careful. And because you never know who you may be around, who may know what. And the best thing you can do is to have a secure home, both not only in terms of self-protection for yourself and your family. That's paramount, obviously, for your own safety and well-being, to have security in that regard, but for your valuables. And I believe anything of value that you have, if you have the ability and luxury to store it off-site with a trusted individual or family member, or someone that it may be difficult to necessarily tie to you, that is the best way to go about it. Spread that wealth around in that regard, in terms of being able to protect, so that it's not even a temptation if somebody thinks that you have it at your location. The other thing is just to be cautious, and as you stack on, recognize that as you develop an appreciable amount of product or of precious metals, that you become a target. So in this case, it'll be very interesting. Look at that timeline again, from November the 26th to November the 29th. That's a long period of time to where this crime could have occurred. Silver, especially in a case like this where you have these large bars, we've seen time and time again. Typically, the larger bars that you have, it's difficult. It's somewhat difficult to kind of liquidate that, and so it makes you wonder kind of what the motivation was for this, and makes you think that maybe these guys were prepared. And in any event, what a story this is. Imagine all of these bars all in these boxes together. It'd be neat to have a 5-kilo bar, but I tell you what, that's quite a chunk of silver there in Australia where this crime had taken place. What an interesting story indeed, and apparently it has stumped the police, because this story came out almost a month after the fact, and they are stumped, which leads me to believe that the criminals got away with it. And if they got away with it this long, more likely they have thought out the process of how to liquidate their treasure by melting them down, or somehow making them into a different form that's unrecognizable. We'll see what happens. So there you have it. Thanks again to the several individuals who made me aware of this story. As you know, I like to cover topics like this, precious metal crimes. There's a playlist on the channel where we've covered it in multiple different facets of crimes with precious metals. I think one of the only channels that does it on a regular basis here. And so I hope you found this information entertaining, insightful, and useful, and lessons learned here. I would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch this video, and to encourage you to please rate. And by rate, what do I mean by that? That means that I would like to encourage you to hit that thumbs up button. It really does help out a lot. Only about 10% of my viewers actually do that. So if we could get half of you to hit that thumbs up button, that would be wonderful. If 100% of you did it, oh, I would be delighted. If 140% of you would hit the thumbs up button, I'd probably question how that happened. And then I want you to share the video. Let other people know. I think it's good to spread the word out with stories like this. Share it among other social media platforms. And then give me a comment. If you made it this far into the video, I want you to say, tap in to the silver. Because certainly this silver was tapped into. So tap into the silver in the comments below. Let me know you watched this far. And subscribe.